because that's where the money was. Trying to do our best to take, we being really all 14 senators, and 7 of them are Republicans and 7 of them are Democrats, to try to take advantage of the moment when everybody's on the same page to see if we can't get the Corps to rethink the management plan and to not plan for, you know, as Kit Bond and Sam Graves and I all said for several years until we lost that battle, you know, your planned spring rise for us is an almost every year flood. And one man's spring rise is another man's flood. And we're trying to continue to move forward with that. You know, other than that, there's not a lot that happened last year. We got some trade bills that are good for Missouri agriculture, but they're kind of the exception that proves the rule that essentially all that was happening in Washington last year was just the minimum necessary to keep the doors open. And that may very well be what happens again this year. But the bigger thing happening in the country is a debate like we have only once every 25 or 30 years who we're going to be for the next 25 or 30 years. And I think it's a big debate. Are we going to be more like Europe, or are we not going to be Europe? And hopefully Greece and Ireland and Italy and Portugal and Spain and France and have all done their job to convince us that if you let your government get bigger than your economy can support, that there is an inevitable set of bad circumstances that you eventually come up against. So we'll see. But I've been talking all day. I'd be glad to talk about just whatever you want to talk about. Otherwise, I might start repeating myself right here because I know I've already said it somewhere and don't know whether it was here or not. Keystone Pipeline, I was really disappointed. I was really disappointed in the president's decision, and you know, the shortest path to more American energy, to more American jobs, is more American energy. Mm-hmm. And we can do that in ways that none of us would have thought 20 years ago we could. You know, though, if you went to farm meetings 20 years ago, the big discussion was, well, we're going to run out of, we won't be able to afford fertilizer because the natural gas component, we're about to lose all, we're about to eliminate all our natural gas. Now we think we have more natural gas than anybody in the world because of shale gas and shale oil. And we need to make the most of it. It's foolish to be dependent on people who don't like you. We have to buy things from people who don't like you.
I went through Carroll County 3 years ago, and it's been a huge economic boost for us.
Both when they were building it and when they started paying taxes on it, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's
rather
what.
than utility taxes are a driving force.
Right, exactly.
We built that one, and then we have the Rocky Mountain Express natural gas line running in the same corridor. So
both of them together was just a huge boost to us.
Right. And you know, and connecting the next best place, better than us providing our own energy, the next best place after that is Canada. You know, they are where they are. It's North American energy. They're our best trading partner every time, the best major trading partner. We have a lot of trading partners that we actually, they buy more from us than we buy for them. But of our major trading partners, of Canada, we give them $1, they give us back 91 cents. And they're not likely to become our enemies at any time anybody can possibly imagine. And it just makes sense. It makes sense for them, and it makes sense for us. And they're going to sell that oil to somebody, and they should. You know, every other country in the world looks at their natural resources, and the first 2 words they think of are economic advantage or economic opportunity. Only in the United States do you have a significant number of government leaders that look at the natural resources, and the first 2 words they think of are environmental hazard. You know, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen, and what would happen if it happened every day? If that had been the view of the country for the last 100 years, we wouldn't be anywhere close to the country we are. And if we let that be the view of the country in the next years or decades, we won't be anywhere near the country we could be. It is as close to an economic no-brainer as you could come up with. You know, for 60 years we haven't met our energy needs. We use about as much energy in a bad economy as a good economy. It is a guaranteed marketplace. Connect the guaranteed marketplace with North American energy, why not? And back to my comment of every other country in the world looks at its natural resources and thinks economic advantage, that's what the Canadians are gonna think. And what are they gonna do with that oil? They're either gonna send it to us, which is the smartest thing for both countries, and connect it to our refineries in the South, in the Gulf South, or they're gonna turn that pipeline west and sell it to Asia, principally to China. This is really not too hard to figure out. Hopefully, we'll figure it out pretty quickly, because once the pipeline gets to the west, there's no particular reason to build it to the south, you know, and you guys make a real good point about both the construction, and I've been saying all day, you know, anybody that benefits from a property tax in a county going to benefit from that railroad and utility tax as it's collected as well. What else?
What about the highway funding bill, BRO program?
Well, the bridge program, we need to really be sure that we fight for, because our counties cannot maintain their bridges without some kind of outside assistance. And the best program we've had for that's been the bridge program, you know, and we just need to be sure we continue that. And, you know, there's another example of, we should have had a highway bill last year. We should have done something about the future of Social Security and Medicare while we had divided government, which is the best time to solve big problems, because you can't spend the next 20 years blaming the other side. You can't talk to a county commissioner anywhere in Missouri and not have the bridge issue come up. And, you know, like I was in Grant City yesterday. You know, they have 2,000 people in that whole county. They got 100 bridges. That's a pretty high person-to-bridge ratio to try to maintain, and they just can't do it. But all the food and food products that go across those bridges go all over the United States, and we need them to go over the United States, and as it turns out, the world. So the bridge program's a good one for you to mention to me.
We have approximately 365 in this county. And we have been one of the most aggressive users of the VRO program. Last year, I think, this past year was the first time that I can remember that we didn't get one built, and even though we had an account sizable enough to build four in our budgets, but we didn't get one built.
Really?
Yeah, red tape is just getting big,
Mm-hmm.
more and more.
And MoDOT changed district, and people get lost and they get shuffled around. And
Well, the regulators generally, you know, I said the constitutional part of the government is just doing what's barely necessary to keep the doors open, but the regulators are hyper-functional.
Yeah.
And we got to figure out how to get that under control. And part of it is the person who appoints the regulators, no question about that. And part of it is, I think we need to take more congressional responsibility for big regulation. Things that cost, you know, that have a substantial economic impact, I think members of Congress ought to have to vote on it. Because you can get your hands on them, members of the House and Senate, and you can't get your hands on Lisa Jackson at the EPA. Though, you know, Lisa Jackson is the worst administrator of the EPA in the history of the EPA. And they've had some fairly bad administrators, so it's pretty hard to get to the top of that list of bad, but she's made it. You know, everything from want to talk about farming without dust, fugitive dust, they spent a lot of money studying whether they should implement a rule on dairy farms where if you had a milk spill, you had to have a oil containment policy, a Superfund kind of policy, and just foolishness. And, you know, these rules and regulations, there has to be some cost benefit to where that last level of whatever you think needs to be done really makes sense. You know, a perfect world where it didn't cost anything to do it, it might be fine to do, but so often now, these regulators just go over the top to where that final decision is one that is economically unjustifiable, is practically unjustifiable, doesn't meet the common sense standard, and we really have to do something about
On
that.
a bridge building deal, we might have a stream realignment or something. And they all want mitigation.
Right.
And if we make a donation to the Friends of Wildlife, like give them $100,000 of our VRO money so they can plant trees out in Kansas or something, we can
You can straighten your.
straighten the ditch out,
ditch out.
so it won't wash the road away. And it's just no sense about what,
Right.
you know, what we're going through.
And besides that, it's against statute to donate, federal money that you get for a VRO program on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, they're asking us to violate the statute. I don't know about the Constitution, but, at least it's gonna be a violation that we will be written up for, the misuse of funds.
Right. And then there are all kinds of Missouri communities. I know one I was talking to this week where the EPA has told them through the DNR, they want the stormwater at the end of the stormwater runoff process to be as clean as the drinking water out of the town. Why would you want that? Why would you even think that was close to a reasonable thing to ask somebody to do? One, it's not drinking water. Two, it's not as clean as drinking water when it comes down. And three, what you're sending into is not as clean as drinking water. And to try to meet that standard, you cripple even big communities, and you certainly, little communities just have no idea what to do. They say, you know, you finally work hard and get the sewer system in place, and then somebody comes in and tells you that your final release has to be as good as the water out of the drinking water tap. It's just foolishness, and there's no reason for it. And, you know, meeting the common sense standard is not that hard to do, but it seems impossible in the current regulatory environment, and we've got to figure out ways to change that.
Well, on the flood this year, the sandbags that we used down on the river, we had to, supposedly, was supposed to send the sand back to a hazardous landfill because it was contaminated with flood water. The sand came out of the river to start with, and the river water was
The same water that.
the same water that, but it was contaminated now, since it.
What about common sense?
The shocking thing about that is it's not shocking that they told you that.
No.
It's just like, oh, well, of course you could put the sand you got out of the river back into the river because it'd been touched by river water. You know, I mean, what do you even begin to say about these things?
So what can be done to fix all these problems?
Well, you start by electing somebody who will appoint better regulators, and I think then the next thing to do is we really have to work to figure out how to make the people you can get your hands on more responsible. I think those are the two things that would make the best impact. And the first one is the one you've got to do that you have the easiest way to do.
When I took office, you were the county clerk in Greene County. Then you worked your way up, and you've gone up. Now, we need somebody like you to run for the president and get to be the president that's got common sense.
And it would make your picture more valuable.
I got a whole bunch of pictures.
There you go.
Not just this one, I got a
That's
whole
right.
bunch.
You got a lot. You'd have, it's no telling what you could do if you had all those pictures. Well, that's kind of you to say. You know, it's just, who would want to go through that process?
Oh, my.
Who would want to go through that process? But here's where I think we are in the country right now. I think about every 25 or 30 years through the whole history of the country, we have these moments when we decide who we're going to be for the next generation. The last time was 1980. And in fact, 4 years ago, Barack Obama got in quite a bit of trouble by saying that Reagan was a more consequential president than Clinton. And I think he was absolutely right, but maybe not for the reasons everybody thought. He wasn't really saying he was a better president. He said he just changed the country. And that was an election where we made decisions that no matter whether Reagan was president or the two Bushes or Clinton, the sort of the side panels of who we were going to be were set in place. And we worked between that for 25 years. And that retooling clock has come around again. And I think this is a bigger election. All elections matter. All politicians believe that, and they're right to believe that. Most people in a democracy believe that at some level. But I think this is one that's quite a bit bigger than we'll have for a while. And I do intend to be all in. Because I think we're going to decide, are we going to be more like Europe, or are we not going to be more like Europe? And surely the examples, you know, of these other countries will make that big difference. Any soybean information I need to be hearing while I'm here?